Thank you, Dr. Lamaran, and all the next slide, please. So, sincere, profound thanks to all the office bearers of IAP Viluppuram Pondi and those who are attending from IAP TNSC and Central and Zonal IAP people. And I appreciate you for choosing this topic in this pandemic, which can precipitate so many hidden hunger, hidden malnutrition, because of the reasons I have mentioned, economic ruin. Hey, just previous one.
Sorry, sir. Just 1 second, sir.
Yeah, I think you are talking to somebody. Previous slide.
I'm muting everybody, sir. Just wait a second, sir.
Yeah, sure. So, because of economic ruin and also the family disruption, especially migrant laborers, the screen has gone.
Yes, sir. Just 1 second, sir.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, the previous one. I want to tell the reason why I am no? Yeah. So economic ruin, all of us know, in any tragedy, in any disaster, and now, of course, COVID pandemic for 2 years, it's continuing, and so much of disruption of families and migrant laborers running, walking all the way back home without money, and production is less. So unemployment, deaths of parents, leaving children orphans, unheard magnitude of migration, as I mentioned, loss of parents, and then burden of illness and impact. And COVID is not only causing problems, but also it is causing further ill health in these people, especially mental depression and the economic burden. So all these subclinical, malnutrition, especially micronutrient deficiencies, will surface. And actually, the Nutrition Committee of India, IAP, Dr. Piyush Gupta, has suggested that every medical college should undertake a community survey to find out occult cases of micronutrient deficiency being precipitated by this and becoming manifest. So I request that medical colleges take up this project to see in the community after the COVID season is over how much of these micronutrient deficiencies have surfaced. And this is, of course, for your information, that the latest nutrition recommendations for children, for pregnant women, lactating women, of all the micronutrients have been mentioned. So kindly look up. Okay, next. So I coming to the first case. Okay, this is a case borrowed from Anantanarayanan. Okay, we see a infantile tremor syndrome, a lot of cases in north. Okay, but south it has not been common, but we are seeing a few cases in south also. And this is a case from Chandigarh, published by Anantanarayanan and his boss Naveen Shankar. So this child is 1 year, normal development till 11 months, and then suddenly the child was not standing to support which was doing, and then subsequently child was not able to stand up also. So loss of acquired development milestones, noticeable abnormal tremulous movements starting in limbs, then face and neck, following 3 days of illness, which is usual precipitating factor of this condition. And the history is very important. Exclusive breastfeeding by the mother till now, and she is a strict vegan mother. She doesn't take even milk. Next. So on examination, child is plumpy. It's not malnourished, but the child was looking vague and dull, expressionless face, and you can see that the hair is thin and light pigmented and sparse when compared to other children of this age. And peripheral hyperpigmentation over knuckles and elbows were noted. Very important finding to be kept in mind. And the tremors were of coarse nature, and the tongue was also there, and limbs while awake, and goat-like beating cry, which we'll be showing the video. You can appreciate that exactly. It will be resembling the goat-like bleating. And weight is -3 standard deviation, though child is looking plumpy, and child is having microcephaly. Next slide. Next, play the video. The sound, please. Sound is not heard. You have to. The sound is not heard, Thiruvurugan. You have muted everything, I think.
Just I'll try again, sir.
Yeah, because I told you. No, even
Sir?
now it's not coming. That's very characteristic goat-like cry. The child is having laryngeus. Larynx also is having hypotonia, and then typical goat-like bleating cry will be there. Later you can appreciate.
I'll try
Okay.
to play it up maybe after the end of
Sure, later. Yeah. And of course, this is a very common condition, and people were, for so many years, and committee, ICMR committee also was there to unravel the mystery of infantile tremor syndrome. Yeah. So, this child is having hemoglobin low, 7.2 grams, and B12 level is very low. Folate level is normal, and of course, because of B12 deficiency, urinary and serum homocysteine levels were raised, which is an important cause for later vascular complication. And biotinase is normal because of the hair changes that was done. And mother's vitamin B12 also was low. So mother is having low vitamin B12 because she is a vegan, and the child is also having because of exclusive breastfeeding and no other thing was given. Okay, and we have mentioned, see, 176, and for this age, of course, child should have more than 227 picograms per ml. And the child was given IM B12, and then daily iron and B6 folate and other nutrition supplements are also improved. And mother was also suggested to take B12 because she was also having B12 deficiency. And after 2 weeks of B12 therapy, you can see the cheerful child sitting. The child was not sitting. Now you can see it's a happy ending. See how the child is interacting and child is sitting comfortably. Okay, so there is mental motor improvement with this treatment within 72 to 96 hours. And laboratory values became normalized within 2 weeks. And cerebral atrophy reverses within few months, according to the literature. Next. Infantile tremor syndrome implicated deficiencies mainly B12. Also, of course, we have to see also for looking for zinc and magnesium because in some cases they have found they are also associated with B12 deficiency. If that's so, then it has to be treated. But this child has responded only to B12 within a matter of few days. So that's why they haven't done all these levels. Okay. And lab hallmark is low serum B12 levels, normal RBC folate levels. It's very important that both of them is done. And of course, macrocytic dimorphic anemia will be seen, and increased urinary methyl malonic acid levels will be there. Next. So this is the second case. This is my experience of two cases. This is in 2020 ICH PG training program organized by IAP TNSC in Dr. NRHM Srinivasan, Professor of Neonatology there and Nutrition. So all the PGs from all over India will come before the examination, DCH, DNB as well as MD PGs. So a case was being discussed by Dr. Professor Balasubramaniam of fever with hepatosplenomegaly, and Dr. Balasubramaniam called from the dais one of the volunteers to come and examine the abdomen. As she was examining, of course, it was being photographed, video photographed and shown in big screens like in marriages. And it was very obvious because I was sitting in the first row. So the child was, no, 170 attendees were there when she was called, and then she was examining. When she was going, then I asked the cameraman who was taking the video, kindly ask her to come and meet me. Then she came and asked, sir, what do you want to say? I said, I want you to check your hemoglobin and B12 levels. She said, sir, I am already on B12. The pigmentation in her hand as she was palpating for the liver and abdomen was so nicely seen in the video that made me call her and then say. So pigmentation, hyperpigmentation of knuckles is very important uh, marker for underlying B12 deficiency. That must not be forgotten. Okay, just like we say koilonychia and pallor, etc. So kindly whenever, and see the next case. This child was brought by one of the JIPMER former employees. Hey, the previous one. Just show the picture first. Yeah. So 11-month-old child brought to my residence recently, last year. Hemoglobin was 8 grams, hematocrit was there, reticulocyte count. This child had pigmentation and mother also had pigmentation. I asked mother to show the hands. And then immediately I asked them to go to JIPMER and have the test done. And they have mentioned that the child is having macrocytic anemia and also hypersegment neutrophils. So what is important is the child is having B12 101. I told you normal is more than 200. Folate is normal in this child. So again, megaloblastic anemia due to vitamin B12 deficiency. Child was given 500 micrograms 2 weeks every day and followed by 1 month every weekly. And then child has improved. Again, within 15 days, hemoglobin improved to 10 milligrams. Clinical improvement was there. The subsequent peripheral smear was showing no hypersegmental neutrophils. Next case. So this is our, you can see I have written fatigability referred for anemia, even diagnosed by IAP, our own CBC laboratory expert, Dr. Palani Raman. You can see, so he always uses, he is having Coulter monitor, which he is always telling that it must be kept in any nursing home. It is very useful. And so these are his cases he gave me last week. Okay, so 2 cases. See the hyperpigmentation, and you can see the graph. There is a shift of the curve. So it's a macrocytic anemia. You can see the RDW is 25. Okay, so suggests your megaloblastic anemia, and these children these elder people, I mean adolescents, were treated by him, and they became normal. And the first case was sent to JIPMER for investigations, and then he continued the treatment, and they are normal. Next. So this is Sirumurugan day for yesterday. Said I also saw 2 cases he has given me, and here the father, mother, and the child, all of them are having hyperpigmentation, and then he has initiated treatment, and you can see there is so much improvement after B12. Next one. So take home messages from these first 6 cases. Take meticulous dietetic history of mother and the child, especially from the time of conception, and also the food fats they have, like being total vegan, not even taking milk. In any developmental delay or regression, never fail to consider the possibility of underlying nutrient deficiency. We always talk about congenital, hereditary, genetic, then inflammatory, infective, and various other causes, metabolic, inborn error of metabolism, so many other causes. But always consider nutrition as an important possibility in the differential diagnosis and give a thought to it. Then you will not miss any of these occult cases. So we have to always remember about skin, hair, nails in any condition, because it's the biggest organ, and it is, cell turnover is very high, especially in the nail bed as well as in the skin, stratum corneum. So all the changes will be seen. So you can see any zinc deficiency, acrodermatitis enteropathica, then you'll find dry skin, so many other things. And of course, pigmentation, B12 deficiency. In anemia, Koelnikia, etc. Kwashiorkor, Stacey, payment, typical. So nutrition means always have a look at the skin. If there is nothing wrong in stripping the child and then seeing the child totally, just like you are seeing for scrub typhus, hidden areas, So it's very important that we look at the skin. Basic investigations. I'm stressing again. Always do a hemoglobin peripheral smear and look for by yourself, and look for hypersegmented neutrophils in the peripheral smear, especially when there is pigmentation, anemia. And then laboratory workup. And as Dr. Paniraman stresses, kindly practitioners keep a Coulter monitor so that you see the graph, and Paniraman is always ready to teach you people how to interpret it. Next. Now the 7th case. 1.5-year male child, failure to thrive, frequent episodes of infections, referred as leukemia. Okay, because very recent onset of repeated infections. Pancytopenia we've seen, that is the early manifestation of acute leukemia, and hepatosplenomegaly was there with 1 episode of epistaxis. All these 3 definitely anybody will think of ruling out leukemia. Next one. So on examination, market pallor, no lymphadenopathy. That was the point against. And no bony tenderness, bleeding tendencies. They are against leukemia. Able to sit but could not stand and walk. Leukemia, of course, unless there is some trauma, the child will be able to stand and walk. Hepatosplenomegaly 4 centimeter liver and 2 centimeter. Neurological examination hypotonia, which is not a characteristic feature of acute leukemia, and decreased Dave tendon reflexes. That is also not a feature of acute leukemia. What did the investigation show? Pancytopenia. That was the one which made people think and refer the case. So hemoglobin was low, hematocrit was 16.9, MCV 96, RDV is high, 25, WBC low, that's also pancytopenia. Neutrophils very low, lymphocytes is increased. Peripheral smear study, macrocytes were seen, normoblasts were seen, hypersegmented neutrophils were seen, mild thrombocytopenia, anisotrosis, poikilocytosis, polychromasia. All these things made people think of leukemia, and LDH is elevated. You can see markedly elevated. Okay, 1.8. And bone marrow showed erythroblastic reaction, pancytopenia. Okay, hepatosplenomegaly was there, leukoerythroblastosis was seen in the bone marrow. Okay, so you can see I have mentioned in the myeloid erythroid ratio was reversed, increased erythroid precursors were seen, megaloblastic changes were there. That only made people do the next investigation. Yes, sure. Yes. See, the vitamin B12 was low. So vitamin B12 deficiency is known to cause pancytopenia and also erythroblastic reaction. Okay. And then there can be thrombocytopenia, pancytopenia, etc. So which may mimic leukemia. So low 80 picogram, high homocysteine levels and methyl malonic acidemia in the urine. Mother's blood level was also low, 110. Okay. So here again the child is having presenting as a leukemic manifestation. So kindly remember, whenever child is having pancytopenia with anemia and the child is having other manifestations, neurological manifestations like hypotonia, etc., in spite of hepatosplenomegaly, think of B12 deficiency. Of course, the child has to be referred to a center where, of course, leukemia should be ruled out. And as you've seen, in this case, bone marrow has been done. So treatment was given, and the child responded to treatment for intramuscular injections of 500 micrograms in the first 7 days. Increase in reticulocyte count was seen in 9 days. 10 days, hepatosplenomegaly regressed. 2 months, normalization of hemoglobin neutrophils. 4 months, resolution of neurological findings. Very dramatic improvement will occur in these cases. Next one. Next one, the next case. This child, 12-year-old girl, recurrent loose stools for 11 years from 1 year. So malabsorptive condition, progressive poor school performance 2 years. Again, there is a intellectual deterioration, stamping gait, and side-to-side swaying while walking for 1 week, which again shows stamping gait, there is a neurological problem, and ataxic gait. So usually when a child is having stamping gait and ataxia, we have been taught in our undergraduate days, we have to think of posterior column involvement. So this is a case I got permission from Dr. Rajesh Joshi of Wadia Hospital, now endocrinologist. So, because we have heard of some subacute combined degeneration due to B12 and folic acid deficiency in adults when we are doing medicine. We have seen in medicine when we are undergraduates, but I never thought it could be present even in children. But this is a few cases have been reported, more than 20 cases have been reported in India. So he gave me permission to show this. Again, see here in this child, the child is having third percentile height and weight less than that, paler knuckle pigmentation and glossitis. See again, the child has given a clue, hyperpigmentation of the knuckle. CNS examination was normal, okay, higher functions cranial nerves. But child had definite abnormal findings. Gait was wide-based, ataxic gait. Babinski sign was positive bilaterally. Pyramidal tract is also involved. Impaired joint position, posterior column sensation is involved, and also vibration temperature sense was not there. Intact vibration temperature, spinothalamic tract was normal. Romberg sign was positive. Okay, you know what is Romberg sign? Okay, posterior column involvement, sensory cutting, So the child is showing with the eyes open and eyes closed, it is exaggerated. Next one. So here again you find the hemoglobin is low, MCV is increased, and then hypersegmented neutrophils present, platelets are low again in this case, ES are normal. So macrocytosis hypersegmented, and of course you find that very low 60 picogram vitamin B12. So child B12 deficiency we heard of being presenting as subacute combined degeneration of the posterior column and pyramidal tract. Show the MRI scan, yes. So you can see the hyperintense signals, okay, of subacute combined degeneration involving the posterior column as well as the pyramidal tract, and you can see also here. So kindly remember, B12 deficiency is not uncommon. Periodically we get to see these cases. Only thing, peripheral smear, I'm again telling, and also in the clinical examination, acute pigmentation. Never forget, and also history of mother having low intake. Yes. Treatment, of course, the child showed marked improvement of gait, resolution of ataxia, neurological signs. Within 3 weeks, dramatic response has been seen. Okay. Next. So you know that B12 deficiency neurological features I already mentioned about myelopathic features are there, and pathology shows demyelinating features, acute axonal degeneration, and chronic axonopathy and secondary demyelinization. And response to treatment is a very important manifestation. Yes, next. So this is, of course, ninth case. When I went as a DNB exam to Delhi, my senior resident who was who did MBBS and MD in Madurai Medical College and was kind enough, along with BRJ Kannan, he came and joined here for 3 years, and then he went to Delhi to do DM neurology. So he is always there in the ward till 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock because the workload was very high for a PG. And then, of course, wife, you know, Delhi, they don't go out unless there is an accompanying person. And she was inside the campus and this thing with the child. And you see here, 9 month son, brilliant, clinically sound. He is an excellent person. Dr. Sirimuran also knows, every one of us know. He is a very intelligent student and very good clinician. And the child at 7 months had typical febrile fits. Then 8 months, child had afebrile seizures lasting nearly 30 minutes or slightly more. That time they have done the investigations. Okay, and he was feeling apologetic and feeling ashamed that as a pediatrician he missed the case. So the child, yeah, please show that. So that child had evidence of costochondral bleeding as well as humerus was showing laceration, and that is widening and fraying. So that child had early manifestation of rickets, and hypocalcemia gave the lead, and then the child had rickets. So even a pediatrician child will have rickets if the mother happens to be all the time indoors and he is there in the hospital till night and child is never taken outside, and the child was also given breast milk. So it's very important to know that even in good families, even in doctors' families, rickets can occur. Only thing you have to give to a thought about how often the child is exposed to sunlight and whether vitamin D is given. I can tell you another case of one of my friend's daughter, whom I have been treating from childhood, and she gave birth to a child, and I advised her to give vitamin D because I see so many mothers working in IT professionals. Most of the time they're in AC rooms till the evening and they come only the night. So hardly they're exposed to sunlight. And one of my daughter's classmate child had rickets. Okay, she's IT professional. So I always advise the mothers who are in this type of employment to give vitamin D. This mother, because stopped beat D without telling me, and and because child had constipation, somebody told vitamin D causes constipation, she had stopped. Later they told that child is able to climb up chairs and all, but child is not walking with confidence. Okay, I had some of the video photographs, and then I said immediately go and take a X-ray in the nearby this thing, and then the child had rickets. So it's very important that you must consider the vitamin D is being given or not. Many times we may prescribe and we may be under the impression that they are taking vitamin D, but they may not be taking for various reasons. So here the 10th case. This is when I was going with Dr. Tangavelu in his car to the Mehta Hospital because I am working I am made emeritus professor there. Whenever I go to Chennai, he comes and asks me to take classes to PG. So this case he showed there while we are going in the car. So he always shows me interesting cases which he has seen. See, this is a 14-month-old child, fever, fast breathing, seizures, tachycardia, respiratory distress, hepatomegaly. They thought of acute myocarditis with failure. And X-ray was taken. Heart is markedly enlarged with a narrow pedicle and increased pulmonary bronchovascular marking you see. But then if you see very clearly, you have to see not only the heart, lungs in X-ray chest, plain X-ray chest. You can see the fraying which I was mentioning in the previous case, the pediatrician's case. You can see that there is a marker can show this thing, Dr. Tirumurugan, the fraying and cupping of the upper end of growing into the humerus. So very typical. And then they have found the child had hypocalcemia, one of the important causes of hypocalcemic cardiomyopathy, acute cardiomyopathy presenting like a myocarditis. So the lesson of this case is in every child presenting acutely with cardiac failure and you think of myocarditis due to a viral infection, kindly do calcium level and of course ECG will be taken and ECG may show prolongation of QT interval. But apart from that, take care this thing, vitamin D level. See, this child had cardiomegaly, pulmonary pulmonary. They were about to transfer to ICU. Upper end of humerus show cupping, fraying in this case. That has been noticed. And then it was, vitamin D levels are low, calcium level was low, and calcium was given and vitamin D was given, and child has improved. Okay, next one, next slide. So then I went and checked how many cases are there in the literature. See, there are so many cases reported all over, but I was not aware of this condition, dilated cardiomyopathy due to vitamin D deficiency. So whenever I hear somebody saying that they are having a child with acute myocarditis, I tell them I will check their vitamin D level. Okay, so kindly the lesson is in any child presenting with acute myocarditis, cardiac failure, do calcium level, take ECG when you are taking, of course, ECG will be taken, but look for prolonged QT interval and calcium levels, and then if it is low, look for vitamin D levels. Yes. Next. 11. This is another child. 9-month-old child, breathing, feeding difficulties, chest indrawing, and vomiting, lethargy, decreased alertness, responsiveness. This is after treatment. No significant past illness. Immunized as per schedule. Mother died soon after delivery. See the importance of family history. Mother was not there looking after, only caretaker. On diluted milk formula up to 5 months. Watery rice gruel was given after that. Diluted boiled cow's milk, then until hospital admission. 3 episodes of short diarrhea, 3 episodes of URI not needing admission. Next one. Next one. Thiru. Thiru. Yes, this child also had cardiac failure. Investigation, and you can see cardiomegaly in this child. CBC with peripheral blood smear, blood culture, everything was sent. Bedside echo showed marked cardiomegaly, poor myocardial contractility with poor ejection fraction, ventricular ejection fraction of less than 40. So this child was having acute cardiac failure. Again, will be thought as myocarditis. But think of nutritional cause. I already mentioned one nutritional cause, vitamin D, and this is wet beriberi. All of you would have read about wet beriberi. Okay, and cases have been there of wet beriberi in the literature as well as in recent reports. And from Karnataka, we see so many cases being reported from Jayadeva Hospital. So here they were again taking the child to intensive care, but they gave B1 as a therapeutic test. Okay, and the child immediately responded. 2 doses of thiamine was given, 10 and 15 milligrams. Antibiotics initiated like a cardiogenic shock protocol. Hemoglobin was low. The child showed improvement within a short time. Within 2 hours, the child showed improvement and contractility from 40, it has become 72%. Child became within 1 day, child came back to normal ward. So after 16 hours, the transfusion was given for the anemia, which also was another important precipitating factor in this case. So take home messages from these cases. Consider always B1, thiamine very in a child presenting. So think of hypocalcemia and vitamin D deficiency as a cause. And then there is nothing wrong in giving every child admitted as myocarditis a therapeutic dose of thiamine. And thiamine is also now incriminated in pulmonary hypertension in infants and children. If you want, you can go and see in the literature. Okay. So kindly remember, dramatic clinical improvement will be seen with thiamine in these cases. And of course, then we can think of other treatment, okay, for myocarditis, like immunoglobulin, etc. Next one, please. So confirmation of B1 deficiency is therapeutic test is very important. Okay, you need not wait for these investigation because it may not be available in many places. So you look for thiamine diphosphate concentrations. Okay, and blood thiamine pyruvate levels. You will see urine levels of thiamine and metabolites, especially lactate levels. Time consuming and scarcity, so it's better to give a therapeutic test. That is a message for all of you. Next one. So I will not go into, we'll skip this, three clinical types of, you must have heard of cardiac form, aphonic form. Child may not be able to suddenly talk and the voice will not be heard. And it may present like a meningitic form in 7 to 9 months old. All of them, such cases are there in the literature. People who are interested in nutrition can look up and this. Yes, next. Now, 12th case, Jipmer case. This boy is a Kerala boy. They tend to take fish, fresh fish. Okay. And he had sudden onset of external ophthalmoplegia. This practice is also there in Thailand. Later, when I saw the literature, okay, when I was doing DCH, I found this was there. Okay, this child came that time. Okay, 73. Sudden onset of external ophthalmoplegia diagnosed from dietetic history. The child was taking only cassava, that Keralites like it, raw fish, fermented fish with polished rice kanji. Dietetic history. Total recovery after the appropriate treatment. Responded to treatment after a challenge test. Child had external ophthalmoplegia. Child was not able to move the eyes. So this is a case of thiamine deficiency, and in clinical pediatrics, and red blood cell transketolase level is very important. We didn't have those facilities those days. Only you can give a carbohydrate challenge because thiamine is important for metabolism of carbohydrate. When you give high carbohydrate load, lactate levels will be increased. That's the indirect test. But child, of course, improved with thiamine treatment. So external ophthalmoplegia disappeared within a matter of hours. Next. The next case, this is another case of thiamine deficiency. 9-month-old child came with sudden onset of flaccid weakness of limbs with ptosis, neck flop, and inability to sit. It's not botulism. We asked for history of honey being taken, but it was not there. But dietetic history again showed the child was given only dilute kanji and diluted formula. So again, the child responded very well to B1 treatment. Next one. 14. 11-year boy with bouts of intermittent episode of unsteadiness, double vision, precipitated by severe vomiting or diarrhea, with weight loss but without signs. This is recurrent, intermittent. Child was having intermittent vomiting, which precipitated ataxia, unsteadiness. Classic signs and symptoms of Wernicke's encephalopathy, ophthalmoplegia was there, ataxia was there. Again, this child responded very well to thiamine. I am telling all these cases again back to your memory because now with this pandemic, you must think of such conditions, and there is nothing wrong in giving a therapeutic test of vitamin B1 in these children, and you'll find remarkable recovery. Okay, next one. All of you can read this. So here there is a latest case of a child with a typical Wernicke encephalopathy. You can see the increased signal in the mammillary bodies, etc. Okay, and the dorsal midbrain. These are the triads, as I already mentioned, encephalopathy, ophthalmoplegia, and ataxia. So whenever a child has these three features, it's worth giving B1. As I mentioned, is in cardiac failure of the child, very, it's worth giving. And similarly, in any child with unexplained cause of pulmonary hypertension, before diagnosing primary pulmonary hypertension, a therapeutic dose of B1 is very important. Next one. Next. So 15th case, a 2.5-year-old boy with lower limb weakness and difficulty in walking since last 2 weeks. Referred by local village-based pediatrician. Provisional diagnosis of AFP, Guillain-Barré syndrome. Normal past history and developmental history. He was thinly built, markedly irritable, screaming on touching the lower limb. Okay, these cases we had seen during our days, and I have put one case also in my DCH record. Please, previous one, man. Yeah, weight and length 68 percentile, moderate pallor was the oral cavity, skin normal, no rashes, bones and joints normal. But child was screaming when the child was not touching the limbs.
ಬರ್ತದೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇ.
Could walk with assistance only. Gait was wide base, limping and sometimes waddling. Pain is motion. No muscle weakness. Neurological examination was normal. Next. It's only due to the pain all these things happen. Next. So diagnosis, of course, X-ray was taken because those days we immediately take X-ray whenever child is having pain. Okay. So child has the typical features of scurvy, and child was immediately responding to vitamin. 72 hours, no pain, tenderness. Child started smiling for the first time, and within 3 weeks, he started walking without any pain. I am telling again these cases because now with pandemic, with non-availability of vegetables, farm producers, and also food faddism, especially junk foods. Okay, these cases will occur even in adolescents. Okay, next. Pre-emergence of scurvy in children and adolescents in developing and developed nations is being reported in many Western countries where food shortage is not there. So, three circumstantial reasons have been identified: family living in highly precarious condition zones, pandemic zones, natural disasters, war and conflict zones, adolescent children with selective and restrictive dietary behavior, aversion, restrictive food intake, especially in autism children, etc., totally avoiding vegetables and fresh fruits, and addicted to junk foods like pizza, etc., aberrant eating behavior by with psychosocial and neurodevelopmental disorders. In ASD, scurvy has been reported. Food fats of parents. Yes. Now, I think last case, 4.5 female, preterm low birth weight infant, 26. I am telling because this is being projected by Dr. Tirumurugan, and he takes care of newborn children, and Dr. Bhatt is there. Preterm children, they are put on long-term parental therapy. This is a case, borrowed case. Neonatal complication of NAC with perforation. Child had surgical coronary resection with ileostomy was done. Need for prolonged 3 months parental nutrition. PRC transfusion for anemia was given. 4 months chest X-ray taken. Yeah, sure. So child had evidence of subperiosteal hemorrhage in the humerus and thin cortex, pencil-line cortex. So it was looking like classical scurvy. Okay, next one. The child was no consistent scurvy was in, and then daily vitamin C. But child didn't respond to vitamin C. Okay. But then copper levels and ceruloplasmin was done because it's very important. They exactly hypocupremia causes exactly similar changes. Okay, this is pseudo scurvy because of parental nutrition without copper in the IV fluids. This child responded to treatment with copper. Final take home messages: always consider nutritional factors as a cause, as I mentioned earlier. Cultivate art of proper relevant dietary history taking. Dietary, okay. Find out family socio psychological fabric, whether they are having food paddism, etc. Dietary preferences and avoidances. Child's daily menu from morning to sleep, from birth till date, whether they are adhering to principles of appropriate complementary feeding and breastfeeding exclusively till 6 months, addiction to junks in adolescents and older children. Mother's nutritional history is important, as I already mentioned, showed cases, examples. Okay. And during well and ill states, how the food taking behavior changes. Utilize bedside tests like peripheral smear. I am stressing that. And CBC count, urine stool examination, and when in doubt, consult without hesitation. And I thank you once again for giving the opportunity. No junk food, always yes. This is the message. Next one. Yeah, again, I am showing the same slide, thanking all of you, especially for highlighting this problem of micronutrient deficiencies during the pandemic time. And I'm sure this warrants a study in many medical colleges that how many children are having these problems after the pandemic is over. Thank you so much for this opportunity given to me. I hope I stuck to the time. Dr. Raman is there.